and obviously that's for imposition of either books or flat work. It even has an optional module for packaging. The Signa Station.
I'm a pre-press operator at this point. I need to produce this job. To utilize that or to do that, I'm going to launch the job interface. And the job interface in our workflow is called the cockpit. This is where all of the jobs over here on the left will be listed and organized according to how you would like them to be organized. When I want to start a new job, simply take my PDF, drag it into the job list, let it go, and this little PDF assistant opens up and we can enter in the necessary information. Well, specifically the job number. Right? What job number do we want to adapt to this? The job name, taken from the nomenclature of the PDF, so I'm going to leave it as is. It's already done the work for me. Finish the job and then decide, how do I want to process this? These different selections that I'm kind of clicking on right here and hovering over are different defined workflows, defined processing steps that I've put in place as an administrator of the system that makes automation sense for us in production. There's differences between these that give us the level of automation or the level of trapping or the level of color management that we would desire for a specific product. In this case, I know that there's spot colors in this job, or there should be at least, so I'm going to choose my spot color workflow for this. The job immediately starts to process. At the bottom of the screen, when the job opens, you can see the real-time status of what's occurring. This is that workflow that I brought into the job. The individual gray boxes are the sets of instructions that the file passes through. The first processing step, this qualify, is where the file gets normalized and pre-flighted. Pre-flighting takes place, the first processing step, and the pre-flighting includes user-specific pre-flighting checkpoints. You user define these, basically. Decide whether you want to turn them on or off. There's about 100 different checkpoints. You can have warnings or errors, so levels of severity of what we're pre-flighting. You want to check for low resolution images. At what resolution would you like to define a job as low resolution? Is it 250 dpi? Is it 150 dpi? You would define that and specify that in your pre-flight. Is there CMYK white overprinting? Is there non-embedded fonts? Is there bleed missing? And if there is bleed missing, do I want the system to generate that bleed for me? All that is possible in the pre-flighter. The second processing step for our PDF workflow is where we prepare the pages for production by color managing and trapping that document, that PDF file. Trapping occurs based on an automatic direction of neutral density of your colors. The latest spot color, Pantone spot color tables are included with the workflow. They will dictate the direction of the trap and the color of the trap being generated. Color management will include RGB to CMYK based on user-defined profiles. So if you want your RGB to CMYK color space to be specific, then you would implement those ICC profiles into the system. You can also do a UCR or GCR adaptation to the PDF file. So if you have a heavy saturated color of 400 or 350% and you wanted to downsample that to a 280% coverage, undercolor removal will take place within your file based on default ISO ICC profiles to give you that max dot generation. That's at the PDF level, so we can open it and verify what was done compared to the original if necessary. These two processing steps connected together with this line, well, that means automation. So the automation takes place when we connect these two processing steps together, or any sequence of processing steps that can be connected. So if I were to bring this processing step up, where we send an email to the CSR of the PDF for approval, and I connect those two, that would be the next successive step that would be automated in that workflow at that point. I want to take a look at it before that process takes place. So I'll let it go as is for now. Our processing is completed. We can see that status at the bottom of the window. So let's move to our pages area and see what we've got. So we see a thumbnail of the process pages. This is a working copy of the original file that we're going to go to production with. The original tucked away in the background, back here in this documents area. So if we wanted to revert back to the original, we would simply go to that first step and then restart our processing from there. I want to take a look at a little bit more specific, so I'm going to change views real quick. From a thumbnail view to a list view gives me different information, and it definitely expands the friendliness or the user friendliness of the interface. You don't have a lot of pop-up windows to move around or to minimize or maximize to view what's important to us for production. I'm looking at these three columns here that I'm circling, and I'm looking for specific information that pertains to my job ticket. I want to make sure that the trim box in the document, as we're viewing it, matches my job ticket. In this case, it does. 8.5 by 11 is correct. But if it were incorrect, if it was a different size in the customer supplied file, then I would know right offhand or right off that there was an issue, and I would either correct it or maybe kick it back to that CSR. The same thing goes for the amount of colors in the job. If I'm expecting a certain amount of colors, I can see here what colors are in the file as supplied by the customer. I also see in the left-hand column a warning symbol. This indicates that there was a warning, at least one warning, within the pre-flight. When I click on that pre-flight link, my report opens up, and it gives me the summary and details about what I'm being warned about or what errors have occurred within this pre-flighting process. Where Heidelberg definitely shines in this area is our ability to come down here with our cursor and hover over one of these details. That's a link. I'm going to click on that. This is specifying that there's a low resolution image on page 1. When I click on that link, it opens the production file up to page 1 in this dialog box. This is the PDF toolbox. Again, with the Pernect name in front of it, it's a Pernect suite of software that Heidelberg develops and supports. This is now part of your Acrobat plugins. This is helping us streamline the print production process. This navigator takes us through the pre-flight report visually. When I click on this warning that I'm being warned about, it shows me what that issue is on the screen over here on the right in the production file. Using the arrows, I can move from one warning to the next. So with that said, I can see that this image on the cover has two issues. It's low res and it's 399%, or a certain area within it has 399% coverage. And I'm utilizing this information to make a better production file. Do I need to color management? Do I need to send it back to the customer to see if they have a higher res image? Utilizing the arrows takes me from one warning to the next throughout the entire document. Notice we just moved to page 2 of the document, and it zoomed me in right to the next issue. This is extremely helpful for us in production. As pre-press operators, it's an extremely valuable tool for us to streamline things. But what we can also do is we can send this information to the customer at a very user basic level. They're not going to have Pernect PDF Toolbox on their end at the customer level. So I close it out. Look what I have left. I have a production file with these sticky notes. These sticky notes are not part of the original customer file, but they're placed on the images that we have warnings about. They're placed there when the job passes through pre-flighting automatically. Inside that sticky note, the text of what we're warning them about. Color image resolution is 163 dpi. We can relay that to the customer firsthand. Without a tool like this, what are we doing? Are we're simply calling the CSR, or we're emailing the CSR talks to the customer, the customer talks to the graphic designer. You get a new file, and I guarantee you're not going to have a new file that's 100% corrected. We gave this to the graphic designer. Graphic designer could actually see what we're talking about. The graphic designer could also communicate with us by typing in what their thought is on this. I stole it from the internet. It's as good as it's going to get. Go ahead and print it. Send it back to us. Did you have a question?
No. No.
Okay, and fantastic. So I'll go ahead and minimize this and close this pre-flight up. As you can see, it's very beneficial to us as well as the customer, or can be. I'm going to switch back to my thumbnail view. Now maybe I want to edit this file. Maybe the customer wanted me to make a change. I want to verify the traps. I want to do something to this PDF. Double-clicking on that thumbnail, it opens the job up, and I'll go ahead and open up my PDF toolbox. Once again, we saw the Report Navigator as the first tool. The next tool I want to show you is called the Geometry Control. Geometry Control is where, number one, we can change the trim box size, the media box size, the bleed box size. If it was inaccurate, I could drag and drop that anywhere I wanted to. The green line is the new trim box size, or where the new trim box size would be placed once I click Apply. The red is where it was. I can type in a desired trim box size. I can control the XY offset to place it wherever it needs to be. I can even hold the Alt key down on the keyboard and snap it to a stroke within the document. So I just snapped it to that upper stroke. Think of the files that you get that have hand-drawn in crop marks, or that you want to modify to a certain stroke within the document, maybe a die line, for instance. We can get a very precise snap by using this tool. We can format this file by rotating in any number of ways, forcing everything, landscape, and portrait, rotating counterclockwise, and so forth. If there was a die involved in this and you wanted to send that out to a die maker, you might need to mirror that for a wrong read file. We could mirror horizontally and vertically with this tool. We can scale the content, scale the page size, or better yet, give this file a user-defined target size. The file came in as 8.5 by 11, but maybe it should be 8.375 by 10.875. This system will take a look at that value that I typed in and then scale the document appropriately. I don't know what scaling would need to occur right off the top of my head, but I know that that's the value that it should be. So go ahead and apply that to the entire document, the current page, even, odd, or a desired page range. So I have a lot of flexibility here when I'm making these changes. My favorite tool of the whole bunch. As a commercial printer, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you have received a file from time to time that has been submitted as a spread, printer spread or reader spread. That's great that they didn't know how to break it apart on individual pages for you, but we want individual pages because we're going to lay it out, we're going to creep the job, and spreads do us no good. This tool that we're seeing on the screen splits this document in half, splits the page in half, making 2 pages out of 1. So a printer spread becomes a individual page document. A reader spread, the same thing, individual page document. How are we going to reorder that pagination once split apart? Well, we're going to do that automatically based on the sorting criteria and how they built this job. Whether it was reader spreads or printer spreads, we can select the appropriate, and then the pagination will occur for us in the background. So you as the user wouldn't necessarily need to think about, oh, well, it was a printer spread, so what is page 1 needs to go to page 16, and so on and so forth. You understand. It's an extremely valuable tool, and it's an inline process. I'm editing this file moving forward with production. I don't have to realize at this time that it's a spread and start from scratch by splitting it. I'm splitting it as an inline production process, so it helps us out quite a bit. Now I trapped this job as part of that second processing step. I want to look at the traps that were done. So I come here and I say highlight all traps, and I highlight them in whatever color I want to over here on the left. So I'm using this dialog box, which is the PDF toolbox, to control everything that I'm doing. Viewing these traps, I can see that they're highlighted in yellow. All the content is like softened back just for our visual purposes. So I'm going to zoom in on one here just so you can see a little bit better what's going on. There's the trap. It's highlighted in that magenta color. Let me take off the highlight. You can actually see where the overprint occurs. The green is going into the black, and it's left this trap as it was generated. Select it. It's an actual layer. It's an actual physical object within this PDF. You're looking at a production-grade PDF. You're not looking at a rasterized file that we're manipulating. We're looking at a native transparent PDF at this point. And I can edit that trap or any traps that have been generated at the object level. Maybe I want to change the direction, make it an opposite direction, or do a centerline trap. For whatever reason, you have reasons to do these things at that user level. I can generate the color or change the color that was generated. I can change the size. So I want this to be 1/8 of a point and a centerline trap. Click OK. The change occurred right in front of you, right in the document. I'll highlight them again. You can actually see that change occurred. When I save this file after it's been changed, it's part of the production job. 6 months from now, when I go to reprint this job, that change remains with this job. I'm not reliant on a RIP setting to generate traps for me that I can't verify. I'm relying on PDF-based, object-based trapping that can be viewed, edited by myself, and now lives within this production file throughout its life cycle. So it's a pretty good tool to be able to use and change that. And 9 times out of 10, what we trap is correct anyway. You wouldn't necessarily need to generate or change traps yourself. Now the last tool I want to show you here is what we call that coding editor that Mark mentioned. Coding editor allows us to make those spot varnish plates on the fly within the production document. Within this customer supplied PDF, I can use a user-defined color, gloss varnish in this case. I've given it this pinkish hue just so we can see what's being applied to the job. I have some selection options down here. I can select, well, I want an image or I want to gloss varnish all text or all graphics or shadings. In my case, just images. I can select all pages, the current page, even or odd pages if I wanted to. I can expand or contract what I'm creating. So if I wanted to choke or spread that separation that I'm creating, I could certainly do that. There it is. Just applied it to the image on the cover. Now my cursor is a paint bucket. Guess what I can do with that? Any object that I would like in addition to that image, I can select with my paint bucket. Now I've filled in that logo up here. I created a separation called gloss varnish as we're viewing in Acrobat. Looks like that. Pretty cool. Try and do that in the native document or the native application, or try and do it to a PDF that you have to now break apart in Illustrator or into the, it's just next to impossible, and it would take you hours. So I'm showing you how to do it very easily with this tool right within the PDF. We'll close that up. Close up our PDF toolbox. We're done editing or making changes at this point to the production document. I'm going to save it. Close my Acrobat up. This dialog box wants to know what I did. Type in a note in relation to what edits were made. The system knows that you edited it because you edited it interactively from this cockpit job. So I'll just say added varnish or whatever note I would want to. That's going to go into the history of the job, and we can recall that note at any point in production or in the future in relation to this job. Let's look at the existing colors, because that's the last step that I want to take for page preparation. I want to make sure my individual pages that I'm going to press with are accurate prior to even a layout. So I'm looking at the colors. I've got my process plus a number of spots. Well, I'm not supposed to have that many spots, so I want to manipulate them. M9Y43, a user-defined spot color. I don't want that to be a spot color, so I'm going to change my target output to process. So I'm just process separating that particular color that I have selected. Over here on the right, I see the CMYK value of that spot color. So when it does separate, I don't want it to separate to this value. Let me separate to my user-defined value. I have more control that way. We see this quite a bit in production where we have two spot colors that should be one. So somehow the logo started in one color, we started the design in one color, and we switched to another color. They should be the same. Watch how easy it is to merge these two together. I'm going to change the target for 151 to the 1615. I'm merging them together. I'm making an alias of one color to the other. I'll do the same thing for the green. Now I have my process plus two spots. I've eliminated M9Y43, made that process, and I merged these two together, and I merged these two together. Now I have my varnish. Gloss varnish was added to the file on the fly. It wasn't there in the beginning. The system immediately picked up when I made that change to the PDF that we needed to add it to the existing colors. The type of color is very important to job production because the type of color will relate to automation, will relate to trapping, will relate to proofing, to outputting to an image setter. The different options that I have here, normal. Well, normal is going to trap based on neutral density. It's going to output normally, plate or proof. If I have a color that's opaque, for instance, a metallic color is opaque, it's going to trap differently. Right? An opaque color has that opaque property where if we're trapping black and silver together, silver wins because it's opaque. Black is going to trap into the silver because it's defined as opaque. If we left silver as a normal color, well, the neutral density of silver is next to nothing. It's 0.47, something like that. It's very small. So black would trap in, silver would trap into the black, and therefore we have an inaccurate trap. So as an example, basically defining the proper colors would help you in trapping. We're going to recognize any color out of a Pantone book automatically in relation to those Pantone libraries. If you have a color, Pantone 877C, that's in our Pantone library. It's recognized as opaque. If you have a color called silver or My Special Silver, that's not in any Pantone library. You may have to make that selection as opaque the very first time. And then I'll show you how we can have that repetitive throughout future jobs. In this case, this gloss varnish is a transparent color. Transparent color overprints, so it's not going to trap. But this is certainly going to give me automation, similar to what a die line would. Transparent works. If it's defined in a job as transparent, it'll output a plate, but it won't output a proof. So I can have the automation look for transparent separations, or separations that are defined as transparent, and eliminate them from the proof, but allow those to go through on a plate. A little bit different with a die line, but same idea. Die line overprints in the document, so it will automatically be done. That outputs on a proof, but it will not output on the plate. All that is behind the scenes automation. The pre-press operator doesn't have to think about, okay, with this job I'm sending to proof, so I need to turn this color off. But I need to remember when I turn it off to turn it back on when I go to plate. None of that exists because of the automation. When I have a color that I have the correct properties associated with, and I want those to be repetitive in future jobs, I can export that user-defined color into my user-defined color table. The system looks at that color table the very first thing upon job creation and associates what's in the artwork with what's in the color table and will adapt those properties to the new job that's being created. Always want a die line to be consistent. We can change the color if we wanted to, but it will always overprint and always behave in the properties that we save to it. So we've manipulated the colors of this job. We'll save these changes out, and we're at the point to impose this job. But at this point, I am going to pause. I'm going to field any questions you have or hear any comments that you have up to this point.
Is there any questions?
No.
Just a very general question, and nothing to do with how the product is used so far. I'm just noticing that I'm just wondering, is the Printect cockpit, is it the client, is that a browser-based client, or is it an application that lives on a client computer, or what?
Yes, it's a client-based application that resides on the workstation. Modern-day graphics workstations, your Mac or PC workstation, will have a cockpit loaded on it. It's referencing the resource data on the server, and it will live on Mac or PC. It will look identical on both. And when it's launched, it's using that client license. You can have it loaded on 6, 7, 10 different workstations, and depending on how many seats or licenses you have in your environment, is how many cockpits can be launched simultaneously.
And what are we viewing this on right now? Is this a Mac or a PC?
This is a PC, Windows 7.
Okay. I just noticed the whole interface looks like a Windows interface. Does the Mac one have more of a Mac look, or does it look just identical to this?
No, it's going to look identical, except for your close and minimize buttons will be your Mac interface buttons. So your outer shell, your outline will be your Mac interface. But as far as the buttons and the icons and so forth, and the windows and the bevels and embosses, those will all be the same.
And how many clients do you get when you purchase this product? Is it unlimited, or do you buy it a per client price, or how's that work?
It's a per client, Kurt.
Okay.
On the clients, although we do have some bundles, that we have, like one that's a bundle of 5. Then we have another that's a bundle of 64.
Okay.
And then you can just do individual clients. One thing also I want to point out too, because the latest Mac OS is El Capitan, and we do support that too. So that one sort of snuck out there on everybody, and we had to do a little programming in a patch, but it is now currently working with the system right now. So we try to keep current with the Macs and the PCs as much as we can. And in this case, our software released before El Capitan was available. Then El Capitan came out, and we wrote it did require some programming because of changes Apple made. So we had to write a patch to it, but that patch is released and delivering right now.
Okay. That's all. That's my only question.
Okay.
Fantastic. One sec here. Okay. This is an 8-page job. I do this job, or this type of job, all the time in my environment. So I have a layout that I'm going to import that I simply reuse for this type of work. Select it from my list, bring it into my job. Empty placeholders at this point, simply assign my PDF, drag and drop, assigns the document to the placeholders, and I create a proof. Want to create a proof because this is an imposed proof of the layout. It's going to show me the positioning of the document, and it will also show me the sheet size. It will also show me the digital rule out of the job. So in a minute, you'll see now, these green lines are the digital rule out. They're snapping to the cut marks and the fold marks within the job. I can see the front page, back, well, the front of the sheet, the back of the sheet, as it would be produced in production. I can back this up to each other. So with this tool, this is also a tool part of the PDF toolbox. This gives us the ability to see how this job would back up in production. Sheet-wise job as it would run, and I'm looking through the front of the sheet to the back of the sheet. So I have opacity set on the front of the sheet. Down here in the bottom of the window, you see how much opacity is being applied, so that I see so that I can see through to the back of the sheet. In the old days, we'd print out a content proof. Right? We'd print it out on low-res paper. We'd back it up. We'd spray mount it. We'd put it on the light table. just to check how things are backing up. This is what I'm doing without the mess and within seconds as opposed to minutes that would have taken. So I can check for crossovers. I can check for artwork that doesn't line up. I can check for text or artwork that's too close to the fold or the cut. If this job was creeping, this preview would also show you the amount of creep that's being done, basically the artwork as it was moved with the creeping. So it's very beneficial to us, and I can see that prior to going to any lengthy process or costly process. God forbid we print all the fronts and then go to back it up and then realize there's the issue. Or I take my time in effort to make a contract proof out and then find out that there's an issue. I don't necessarily need to do that here because I'm doing that at a digital level. You can also see that this job is printing according to the layout on a 25 by 19 sheet. That's where we're clipping this preview, this imposed image, to the sheet size. My job ticket states that it should print on 2026. So I've caught the issue with this proof. I want to make that change. Now you'll see how easy it is to modify a layout within the job. I'm interactively opening this layout up in SignaStation. SignaStation is Heidelberg's imposition program that's integrated as part of the workflow. As a handshake, there's a connection to the cockpit job. Right? You didn't see me detour and step aside and do this. I'm in production right now. I'm actually going to just simply make a sheet size change. You can see that sheet size change here in the graphic window. And I'm outputting this changed layout back to the job. I can now make a new proof it out, or I know that I've got the correct sheet size. Last minute, Mark just phones me up and says, Sean, I hate to tell you this, but this 8-pager just changed to a 16-pager. That really isn't a problem because I'm just going to simply use my context menu to increase this job to 16 pages. My 8-page saddle-stitched job is now a 16-page saddle-stitch job. Utilizing SignaStation in the background, it built the additional signature necessary to accommodate those 8 pages. When I get my new artwork, I simply place that in just like I'm placing the current artwork in. And I can move to proof and move on with production there. So to kind of summarize what I'm showing you here is this was one layout, part of a resource pool of layouts, that I modified to suit the needs of the job. I modified the sheet size, number one, and then I modified the page count. You can really modify anything about a layout interactively. But what does this do for us as a user? You have preps. So I'm going to guess with a 40-inch or a half-size press, you've got an 8-page folding sheet. You've got a 16, a 24, a 32. And you've got those layouts as templates on 25 by 19, 2026, 2329, or whatever associated you have. You have a 40-inch, so you have your 16-page folding sheet. You have your 32, your 48, and so forth. You have the same type of scenario. Eliminate all those individual resources, simplify them down to your house base go-to layout, and then modify it if necessary. If that document size or that trim size was not 8.5 by 11, if it was 9 by 12, and you don't do 9 by 12s too often, modify the 8.5 by 11 to 9 by 12. There's no reason I need a resource, a template resource sitting in a library that I'm ultimately responsible for managing, updating when updates need to occur if you wanted to change a mark or something on it. So we're eliminating 16 possible layouts down to 1 with the ability, with having the integration aspect of our workflow. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to proof this to my contract proofer. Again, part of the workflow is a directly connected contract proofer. In my case, an Epson 9900. Our system has the color management engine to give you that color matched proof. You do not need a third-party color management provider that connects to a proofer to give you a color managed or color matched proof. This will occur within the workflow. In addition to that, if you have a proofer that has a spectroproofer that will read patches, we can apply that to the proof. The proof will actually print an ID Alliance chart at the bottom of the proof. The spectroproofer reads that and then qualifies that proof to your Grackle standard, actually printing whether it meets or does not meet the tolerance level of Grackle, basically certifying the proof right in line. No third party needed, and it's an inline reading process if you have the spectroproofer. It's highly worth it to have that as part of your proofing process. The last thing that I want to do here is I want to make plates or send this job for imaging. So drag and drop to my plating task. This allows me to, well, add a processing step on the fly. Maybe initially when I built the job I didn't assign the processing step because I didn't know what calibration curve to use or what stock this was going on for calibration or line screen. So I can add that on the fly. I'm simply going to select my appropriate processing step, and voila. The job is now being rendered using Adobe PDF Print Engine. So our RIP, or what we call our renderer, what's doing the separation in the 2540 or the 2400 resolution TIFFs is the Adobe PDF Print Engine. And it's at this point that we're outputting the plates, or we output to that contract proofer, that the ripping or the rendering, in our case, occurs. Up till now, we've had a native transparent PDF that's been normalized, pre-flighted, color managed, trapped, fully editable up to this point. These settings that live within this job, so the rendering settings, the proof settings, live within this job and are static now that they're here. If the resource that we used changes 3 months from now, the job remains as is. So the job holds all of its components in relation to how it was output internally, so that if we did reprint it 6 months from down the road, I don't have to think, did I change something to my output template or my output process, and is that going to affect how I output this time? That's not the case. So you saw how we started the job. In the documents area, we looked at our pages once they were previewed, pre-flighted, color managed, normalized, etc. We imposed the job, we proofed the job, we plated the job. Using our convenient task-oriented view at the top, these tasks are now complete or will be complete. I utilized PDF Toolbox in Acrobat to manipulate or edit the PDF only if needed, right? If I didn't have to edit it, I didn't need to use it. We utilized SignaStation to modify the layout, page count, and sheet size if necessary. If the layout was okay as is, I didn't have to use that. And then we finished with our plating process, all from one very user-friendly interface. The job is now completed, and I can move on to the next. Any questions with that entire process as you saw it?
Yeah. When you changed the sheet size, did that automatically reposition the marks to reflect that new sheet size?
Any marks that were associated with the sheet were automatically repositioned. Now, you'll see that in the next demonstration that we're going into with SignaStation, how those marks will be dynamic with the different media.
Okay. And then how are your users, or how do you envision your users, how are they showing proofs to their customers online? Do you have a remote proofing system, or are you sending PDFs of the Go ahead.
Yeah, Kurt, there's two ways to do it. one way is standard with the system. It's called PDF approval. And when Sean first showed you how you set up a workflow in the beginning, he had the building blocks, right? And the first building block for the workflow gave you normalize the PDF and pre-flight it. The second building block says give me color management and trapping. And when he draws a line between it, when you drop that PDF in, it's going to normalize, it's going to pre-flight, it's going to color manage, it's going to trap, and it's going to stop because there's not another line beyond that. Now, he grabbed another box and put it up there and says, if I want to automate this, I just connect the line. That one was called PDF approval. So if you have that in there, as long as your client, what you do is there's a database in the system, and you can put your client's email address in there. And by connecting that line, then what it will do is it will drop the PDF in. It's going to normalize, pre-flight, color manage, trap, automatically package it into email, and send the email to the client with a PDF proof, and the pre-flight is attached to it. That's standard with the equipment.
Okay.
Your limit there is email sizes, right? I mean, if you got into huge jobs
Right.
and someone doesn't have a large access there. Optionally, we have what's called remote access. It's a separate system with a server, and that is a business to business where you know, we can bring jobs in and send back proofs to the clients from there. The clients can actually open up a job and upload their PDFs. And when let's say that I'm the client and I open up an 8-page job, I'm going to work on it at 3 in the morning because Sean's not home. You know, he's gone for the day. When I open up the job and I say it's an 8-pager and, you know, there's some basic parameters I put in, I upload the PDF. It's going to go and automatically go through the normalizing, pre-flighting, color managed trap, generate a rendered proof, and then send the client an email saying your proof's ready. The client clicks the link and they'll see the proof there then and there. So there's a couple different ways we can do proofing.
Okay.
Hey, Kurt, what I'm showing you on the screen now is the email approval. So I'm going to minimize this for a second and kind of catch you up because I was doing it in the background while Mark was talking. He was actually referring to this box that we had initially, and this little gray box right here is the set of instructions that automatically emails out that proof to, not necessarily the customer, but it can go to a user-defined email. So what Mark was explaining was a very, very efficiently automated way to get to a client. You had a database of client references and approvers based on those clients. So if you're printing for XYZ customer and XYZ customer has, you know, John Doe as an approver, that can be held within a database and automated. In my case, I just have it simply going to a static email address, the CSR, because the CSR deals with all of proofing anyway. So I'm just going to send it to the CSR, and then the CSR can filter it or forward it to whoever the customer might be. If we connected those, that would be an automated process. But I wanted to take a look at it first. I want to take a look at the pre-flight, maybe do the edits or whatever prior to sending it. So how I got that to the CSR was I simply took my pages that were prepared and I dragged it to my one-up task, my page task, and just dropped it on that. So any non-connected processing step can be manually applied to the file by a drag and drop. Did that, and it went to the CSR. The file did. Let's take a look. There's the email that the CSR received, some user-defined text in relation to the job number and the job name. Any comments that I may have made to the CSR would show up in this comments list. And there's the PDF. Double-click. Oh, hello. Now, of course, you know why? I know why. Because I had already sent this to plates. So it grabs the file, it basically locks it. So that's why it's doing what it's doing. So I did this a little bit backwards. I'm plating the job, so why would you proof it at this point? So that's why it's saying that the operation has failed. So my intention was good, but nonetheless a failure. But the PDF would open, and then the PDF is simply viewable at that Acrobat reader level. The traps would certainly be something that the client could look at and see if the reader overprint preview was on. You can take those out if you'd like to. Let's say that may just confuse your client to look at. Part of the automation is to remove the traps visually for the customer not to see. But nonetheless, it's a very user-friendly way of going about proofing. Now, how do you currently proof your jobs with your workflow?
Well, we're on Rampage. We send a relatively low-res raster rip-trapped PDF to the customer, but we're not too happy with it because it's type and just looks really crappy. And
sure.
To keep the file size small enough to email, they have to be pretty low-res.
But you're just emailing it, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's a rasterized file with a PDF wrapper around it that's low-res that you email. Yeah. This would be much more convenient and at that native file resolution, or we could actually downsample it as well.
Yeah, Kurt, if for instance, let's say you got a client, you don't want to give them the full res PDF because, here he's got this PDF that may be ready to print. It's already trapped, color managed. He can go somewhere else with that. So part of the parameters for setting this up, there's, you define. You can say, leave all the text high resolution and all the vector stuff, but images 72 DPI. And you can set that as base parameter so that, and let's remove the traps because this client's an art director and the traps confuse him. You can have that automatically set up. So then that is defined for that workflow. So let's say that's what you do for this one client, but all your other clients are different. You let them see the traps in that. You just take those building blocks that Sean had and you create the workflow. And let's say the client's name is Cooper. Well, we'll name that Cooper's workflow. And whenever Cooper's job comes in, you use that automation, drop the PDF, and it's going to go do everything we just said, wrap up the PDF, make the images 72 DPI, remove the traps, and automatically email it to the client. So, you don't have to treat everybody as a global correction. You can, and it's very easy to set up the workflow automation. It's just what he showed you there. It's, the building blocks and drawing a line through them. It doesn't get much more simpler. There's no programming. So that would be part of it. So it's and again, that part there, the PDF approval is standard with the system.
All right, but a great question. Anything else, Kurt?
No, not at the moment.
Perfect. All right, so what we're going to go into now is we're going to go into an existing job. So we've done all the page prep. Right? We're at the point of imposition, but I don't have one to import. And I don't have one specifically because I want to show you how we utilize Signa to build it, right? So click Create. Create opens up this dialog box and will spawn the launch of Signa Station. Signa Station is another application that resides on the workstation that uses server-based resources. So what we've seen to this point is Acrobat plugins that are at the workstation. We've got our cockpit client interface, and now we have our Signa Station application that's on the same workstation, but also referencing the resources for commonality throughout the shop. Okay. What we're going to do here is we're going to build our layout based on the tasks that you see at the top of the window. We're big into tasks, right? If you think about it, I have a task to do here. I need to complete this job, and that one big task is made up of multiple little tasks. Right? So let's enter these. Let's enter the information in relation to this. Product part. This is a 16-page job, and it's a booklet, so it's the work mode is imposition. 8.5 by 11. Now some of these are preferences that are defaulted, right? I do 8.5 11s the majority of the time, so that's my default size. Same thing with the bleed, 1/8 of an inch bleed. binding method that I'm going to select here is one of multiple this saddle stitches. I want this job to creep, perhaps, but I want it to creep automatically based on paper thickness. So if I associate a stock thickness with this job, if it's an 80-pound gloss text or a 100-pound gloss cover, there's a thickness. I could type that value in or select it from a user-defined material list, and creeping is done automatically based on the thickness of the stock and the amount of signatures that are going to be needed to put that book together. Or I know it is. It's a 1/16 of an inch or it's an 1/8 of an inch, so I enter that value in manually. It's up to you. I can creep by offset or I can creep by scale. Offsetting moves the pages into the spine, cuts off what's in the middle. Scaling wouldn't cut anything off, but it's going to squeeze the artwork to accommodate that creep. Sometimes that may be the lesser of two evils. I can't afford anything to be cut off at the spine, so I'll scale it to, appease the need. Or this is the job level. Maybe I just want to cut creeping off at individual pages. Let's say it's a spread that has a map in the middle, right? I can't cut anything off, but I don't care what's on the outer edges. So turn creeping off for those 2 pages, and now I've got my job successfully built. In this case, I'm going to turn it off. I don't really need it. But I do want these values enabled because they're going to help me place the artwork on the sheet for saddle stitching. I need a high folio lip. That high folio lip, 3/8 of an inch. I want a head gap at my head trim of 1/4 of an inch. And my max gap, my maximum amount that my stitcher would be able to trim off in line would be 2 inches. So I want that value here as that maximum. You'll see where those values come into play in a minute. Job-specific marks like cut marks, folding marks, I want folding crosses on because I want my folder operator to see where those folds should occur. I don't want them to rely on the artwork or measuring them manually. Folding lay mark, I want them to see where the lead edge and guide of the folding sheet should be so that they load it into the feeder of the folder correctly. And my press operator can see that so that they use the proper gripper and guide on the press. My plate template now. I'm going to select my plate template from a library of templates that you will define that are pertinent or specific to the printing devices that you have in your shop. Plate template relates to, in this case, a CX102. Over here on the right, you can see the graphic. This darker gray area is the plate size. Then you have the white area, which would be your sheet, and then the arbitrary artwork area, the subject area. Those 3 media can hold reference to marks. Marks that either move with the media or are static. The plate is a static value or a static dimension. So I've got marks in the bend area like job reference information and process control marks that show me my dot gain on the plate. The paper now, the stock, has side guide, center sheet marks, sheet-specific job information like a layout mark, maybe a barcode if you were doing any type of barcode reading. When I make a sheet size change, those marks move with it. So I'm going to make this not the default max size, but 38 by 25. You see the marks? They moved dynamically with that sheet size change. So I don't have to think about replacing marks or making sure they're in the right size or having multiple plate templates associated with different sheet sizes. I can dynamically change that sheet size in the job and know that my marks move with it. The artwork, well, once the artwork is placed on the sheet, those marks will move with that artwork. The color bar, now I have my color bar tagged to the tail end of my artwork, and it's a user-defined amount away from that tail trim. I have it, I think, at 1/4 of an inch away from that tail trim. This mark is a combination of multiple color configurations stacked in the background. This one mark, one resource, has a 4 color, has a 6 color, and it has an 8 color stacked behind themselves. You can configure whatever you want as your combination mark. Where it's going to benefit you is drag a piece of artwork into the job. The appropriate color bar will be assigned to the layout. If I have if I have four color artwork, the four color bar will be chosen automatically. If I have 6 color artwork, the 6 color bar gets chosen automatically. That's not all. The color bar actually clips to the trim size of the artwork. So this mark is max size. It's 41 some odd inches. But when my artwork is only 36 inches wide, the color bar clips itself to a full patch outside that trim area. So it's, again, something that I don't have to think about. Similar to turning colors on and off. I don't have to think about what plate template to use in association with a sheet size. I don't have to think about what color bar to use in association with artwork. It's all done automatically for us. You'll see that in the very last demo where that is extremely beneficial. The last thing I want to do in this window is select my working style. So you can see that we've got single-sided, turn, tumble, perfect. In this case, I want this to run sheet-wise. Therefore, whatever I do to the front, the back is automatically accommodated for. The last thing that I need to do is assign a scheme. And a scheme is no more than a matrix of columns and rows. You can see that we have multiple standard schemes, 8-page schemes, different configurations of columns and rows, 12-page schemes, 16-page schemes. The system is actually filtering out all the possible schemes and eliminating the impossible schemes that could be associated with this job. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different 16-page folding schemes. Which one is the correct one? You're looking at head direction, you're looking at ordinals and making sure that they're in the right direction, making sure that it meets your standards, right? I'm going to select this one. I think this looks right. Now, I need gaps and gutters, right? Watch this. Clicking on automatic gaps moves the artwork on the sheet in accordance with those values that I typed in back in the binding area, where I said I needed that high folio lip, 3/8 of an inch, max gap of 2 inches, head gap of 1/4 of an inch. This artwork is now placed on the press sheet so that it can go directly to the folder. My folder operator folds to the folding crosses. I have my high folio lip. It's my high page right here in the center for my saddle stitcher. If I don't understand those values or apply those values, I put a 1/2 inch here in the gutter. I put a 1/2 inch here in the head. Now I got to go to the cutter prior to going to the folder so that the cutter can trim it down so that when the folder folds it, there's that high folio lip. I eliminated that whole process with a click of a button. Before I knew this existed, before I worked for Heidelberg, I was a customer. And I didn't understand what was going on. Not a lot of pre-press operators do. So I would do the 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And at one point, I saw the cutter operator doing this, and I asked why. And they told me why. Well, I can do that in pre-press. That's very simple. Not a big deal at all. Simply doing that eliminated hours worth of work and opened up that bottleneck at that area. Very simple to do. Next thing I want to do is I want to place my artwork. So I have my preview right here in the layout program. Remember that 16-page folding sheet that I selected and I said, oh, I hope that's the right one. Well, if I open my folding sheet animation, I can actually see how this is going to fold down. Up, and up. Oh, I can take a look. I can bend this. I can look at the front page and so forth. I can have my 3D view. I can view that again, make sure that it's correct, make sure that everything's lining up properly. Now, I'm a pre-press operator. I think, again, I'm a little bit more sure that this is the right one, but I want to get verification from my folder operator, my post-press manager. I can email this view to them so that they can make that decision. Yep, that folds right. They see the lead edge and the guide. They see the exact same animation, and they can open it up in any browser. So Firefox, Chrome, Explorer. This is a simple animated GIF that can be viewed in that browser window. They can view it and then approve it and say, yeah, you chose the correct scheme. I can do anything I want at this point to the layout. I can add marks, take away marks. If you had custom marks that you needed to adapt to a job, I can certainly do that. But I simply just want to output this now, and I'm making a decision at this point. Is this layout specific to the job that I'm working on, and only this job, or is this layout, could I use it on other jobs, irregardless of the artwork? So think of it as an empty shell. Could I use this 16-pager all day long in other pieces of, or other jobs in the future? Yeah, I could, but I didn't have it initially, so what I do is click Save over here, and now put it in the resource library. Now I've got an 8-pager, and I've got my 16-pager. But just outputting it back into the job that I started in isolates it to this job, so it frees up the clutter in my resource library, and it embeds this layout in this job. 6 months from now, I reprint it, this layout exists in this job. Client just calls me up, says, or client calls Mark. Mark calls me, Sean, I need to get a mock-up of this, or I need to get 50 copies out to the digital device for a mock-up or a quick 50 copies for the customer. What can you do for me? Well, I got it laid out for a 16-page on the 40-inch press. Well, not a problem. Watch this. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make a printer spread for my digital device by simply making an imposed PDF that breaks this from a 16-page layout. You saw how I made the imposed PDF of the entire layout before. It just has a similar fashion, but different instructions. Watch what I've got here. My 16-pager broken down into printer spreads. This is a PDF. This isn't a ripped file. This is a PDF that I could either eliminate the traps from because I'm going to a digital device, or I can keep them on there. What prohibits me from saving this onto a network folder down to a digital device? Nothing. There's nothing proprietary about this. This is a simple high-res PDF that we've extracted from my 16-page folding sheet down to spreads for my digital device.
Yeah, so in your case, Kurt, then you'd have a template for the size of the Indigo. And, you know, if you needed to do this, that's how simple it would be.
No matter what size you're printing on, this is 11.5, 18.5, or 11.5, 17.5. I've basically taken that and I've added a half-inch margin around my folding sheet. You can center this in the middle of a 12 by 18, 13 by 19, whatever you want at your digital device. It's just extremely easy process. I could even point this destination to a network folder so that it automatically goes down to that network location. I wouldn't even have to open it up and look at it and save it. The destination of this process could be your network folder down to your digital device. Could be that simple. Pretty cool? Plating,
Indeed.
proofing, same thing as the last job. So really what I wanted to show you there is how we use SignaStation for booklet work, how easy is SignaStation to navigate through to build your layouts, very user-friendly, and it can be used as an inline process. It's an integrated part of Cockpit, right? So I don't have to go to a standalone workstation or application to generate something to have as a template to import into the system. I'm doing all this on the fly. Next job and the last job is a job that has multiple pieces of artwork, some business cards and some labels. I want to put them all on a sheet and optimize my sheet. So again, create from the job, open Signa up, move through the job assistant or the task view. Montage mode, different working mode for flat sheet work. This optimizes things so that I can more easily accommodate this type of work. Select my plate template. In this case, it's going on half-size press. You can have multiple plate templates for multiple presses. This is running sheet-wise, and 23 by 29 is the stock. Here's my artwork. Drag it into the sheet. Dimensions are very helpful for us for positioning if need be. They can be toggled on and off very easily. So I saw where this was in relation to my sheet, and I can move that around and see the dimensions moving very easily. So continue to drag in the artwork. Notice the color bar and the artwork. Watch what happens to the color bar. Automatically expands to meet the trim of the new document, giving us a full patch, right? So it's very important in the Heidelberg world anyway for automatic readers to have a full color patch. This is a Heidelberg color bar. You have a Komori press. You could import your Komori color bar. It doesn't matter. I'd like you to have a Heidelberg for, but, that'll be the next step, right, Bryce? Anyway, what we're really doing here is we will build our sheet the way we want to. Now, I've got 3 pieces of artwork on the sheet, and I'm going to start to step and repeat them. So I want this piece of artwork, I want to first establish a margin around it. So that margin is going to be helpful when we start placing artwork in proximity to each other. So I'm creating a force field around this block at this point. And I'm stepping it up 12 up. I can dictate the gaps. So I want a 1/4 inch gap instead of the default 1/8 of an inch gap. Now I have a block of 12 pieces of artwork that are stepped up. Where'd the color bar go? It actually went off the edge of the sheet, so it clips itself. And part of my trial and learning period in printing was I would have a mark like this that would go off the edge of the sheet but still image on the plate. I had some mad press operators back in my day. You don't want that. So what we're doing here is we're eliminating that thought process again. If you max out the artwork on the sheet and push that mark off the tail edge, it's clipping itself. So you don't have to worry about it imaging on the plate off the sheet. I'll do the same thing here now for each piece of artwork, simply assigning the margins that I want associated with it and stepping these up to my desired count. So this one is going to be 10 up. Move that in, and I'm just going to kind of move these anywhere I want to, really, on the sheet. You guys do any printing for converted envelopes or for envelopes that need to go out to get converted?
Yes.
If you do, watch what I can do to any piece of artwork. I can angle it at whatever angle is desired. If you don't have the ability to do something like this now, I'm going to guess that you're doing something like this in InDesign or Illustrator. You're placing your artwork, you're sending it out as an imposed PDF to sheet size, and then you're bringing it into your workflow. Well, how convenient would this be to build your envelope artwork to the finished size, have something like this as a template already set in place, angled to the precise angle that the converter needs, place your number 10, your A2, your A6 size artwork, and now you have templates simply for your envelopes. You can manipulate the marks, because I know those converters don't like any mark besides a dot in that lower left corner, the registration corner of the envelope. So you could simply accommodate that very easily. Now you've got layout templates that are very beneficial to us. Last thing here, I'm going to make this my margins, and step this up. Now I just want this to be 3 up. And give me 1/4 inch there. Okay. Now let's make the sheet look pretty. Let's arrange these. Now when I arrange them, I'm simply going to dictate a sheet margin. I don't want this artwork going any closer to the edge of the sheet, left and right, than 1/4 inch. That will accommodate my marks that I need on the left and right side. I need, I'm going to say 1/2 inch for gripper and maybe 1/2 inch for my color bar. Pieces of artwork snap together like magnets. The force fields, those margins, butt up against each other, creating that gap in between of 1/4 inch, because I dictated that I wanted an 1/8 inch margin around each block. I have a lot of open space here in this white area. So I'm going to continue with the layout by placing my business cards. My business cards now populate, and again, let's make it look pretty. Automatically arrange, use the same sheet margins. So my business cards optimized in a very friendly pattern for the cutter operator. It didn't butt these 3 cards up against these 4. It could have to eliminate this gap, but that would have proven a very inefficient cut. You can see that the back is generated along with the front. Not every piece of artwork had a back, just the business cards. So when I move artwork around, the back moves with it. Always snapping to the margins of the job. And what would I have done possibly by creating a layout like this? Maybe I introduced some ghosting possibilities, right? Do you ever use ink pickup bars or ever had the need or desire to? I'm going to show you how to make these very easily. I'm drawing a box in any arbitrary area on the sheet, maybe just this upper left corner or the entire sheet, doesn't really matter. Build an ink pickup bar. Right now it's stripe oriented, right? It's a common stripe across the entire area that I masked out. Well, if I wanted this more specific to the zones of the press, and again, Komori, Heidelberg, Manroland, whatever the zone widths are, we can dictate that. Watch this. The bar actually optimizes based on the artwork within the document. Look what happened here. We've got shades of cyan, darker and lighter shades of cyan for a balanced ink pickup. The system or the artwork has enough magenta, has enough black, has enough yellow in most areas. Where we need the most help is in that cyan. So you can see where that's being laid down per zone. This is beneficial to us because it's so easy to do as a pre-press operator, but it's also beneficial to the press operator in balancing out the sheet and getting that ink pickup where it's necessary.
Yeah, Kurt, the first time I saw this, actually Sean was doing a packaging demo, and the customer that we had was a preps user, and he asked, is this possible? And Sean did this for him, and it was going across the whole sheet, and the guy almost fell out of his chair. The week before, he had to do one in preps, and he was able to do it, but he had to manually create it and figure out, how to do the proper reductions or what inks to use in each zone, and he said it took him 45 minutes, and we're basically a mouse click. I haven't seen any software anywhere else that does this. This is, and we've been doing this now for several years, and every time I show it to people, can you do this? I haven't seen anybody that can do it yet. So maybe there's someone out there, but I'm not aware of that.
So this layout now, Kurt, is complete. I've built this based on the quantities that I desired and how I wanted to lay this sheet out. I simply output this, and again, this goes back to the cockpit job. This is not a template that's taken up space in my resource library that I have to navigate through every time I want to import a template. This is specific to the job that I've created here. We go to plate, we go to proof, just like we did in the others. And when I'm completed, when I've finished a job, I may want to archive. Now, archiving can occur as an automated task in the background at a user-defined interval. If I come into my administration area, I can actually show you that I have a task that's set up to archive my jobs. Basically saying, if the job has not been modified in the last 90 days, so if no modification has occurred, go ahead and push it to the archive. What that does is it spawns a process that will take away all of the guts behind a job, all of the meat, the high-res files, the low-res files, the layout, you name it, and it goes to the archive. What's left behind in my job list is an exoskeleton, is a shell of a job. So I'm going to switch views real quick. I'm going to show you my grouped view, but I'm also going to show you my flattened view. So these are all of my jobs in my job list. You can see that the status is idle, process, idle, and so forth. These are active jobs. Switching views, I can actually see my offline jobs. These jobs have been archived. So there's no meat, there's no guts behind this job. What's beneficial to us is these are searchable. I can come into my search fields, type in a desired job number or customer name, and that would find these archived jobs for retrieval, possibly, for a reprint. So when I find that possible job for a reprint, I can open it up, and I can see everything about what was done on this job. The original document and its path. I can see the thumbnail of the artwork, the layout that was utilized, the proofing process that was utilized, plates that were generated, and what the processing was behind that. Of course, there's a bunch of invalids because I no longer have that press in my realm, but I can see the screening that was adapted to it and so forth. But I cannot do anything to this job. I can't push it to plate or push it to proof or open up the document because it doesn't exist in the job structure. What I would have to do is I would have to find that job and I would have to retrieve it. By a very simple right-click, choosing retrieve and OK brings that job back from the archive. So the system indexes, if you will, the jobs. It knows what's where. It knows if it's active, it knows if it's archived, and has the ability to pass those files back and forth through the archive and back to the job interface, giving us the benefit of the size that we need in our job pool and the comfort that our jobs are being backed up to an archive and safe in that specific area. What you would need to provide us to have this is the archive disk, the network disk. If you don't have that network disk, we can talk about what we have to offer you in as a solution to that. But do you archive anything now?
Yeah, we do. Right now, we're pretty obsolete in our archiving system. We archive everything, but we archive everything to DVD.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, in this case, Kurt, we go to a Windows-based RAID disk farm, basically. So that's why we don't put that into the system. The software's there to drive it, but I mean, how many people have a server with a lot of storage on it? Windows-based, we get one of our guys to tell you what you need to do, and we can set up the archive to that. Or we can sell you storage. It's just we leave it out of there because I would say better than 50% of the time somebody's got stuff around that they would repurpose. So, but that's that's it. And then the good thing about going to the disk arrays is actually they're more secure. One, but what we do in our case, if you want the utmost reliability and functionality, we'll RAID stripe and then we'll mirror it. So that's about as bulletproof as you can get unless somebody threw a grenade at it. but that's that's basically what can happen there. And but the software used to be an option, and on this version of software we made it standard. Prior to that, we were probably doing more along the line what you're doing now. When the job's done, we can write it into a tar file and then burn it to a DVD or a CD or something. And this just makes it automated. The other thing that's sort of nice is Sean's got all kind of stuff going through there, being a demo center, and he just sets the clock and doesn't even think about it, and the stuff automatically will archive it for him. So it does some housekeeping for him.
You have time in your busy day.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Let's see here. I was going to ask you about how the archiving was done, but you answered that. Could you go back and open up basically like a blank, say 19 by 25 template? I can ask my question better if I could show it to you while you've got something open.
You're looking at an actual imposition job, is what you're looking at?
Yeah, or just a job like when you had, I think, back here, and you're gonna okay. If we can just create a new imposition here, basically. Okay, there you go. So now, I thought it was really cool the way your color bars automatically grew to match the art. However, that's not how we do things here. For one thing, our color bars are always on the gripper, and number two, they always go the entire width of the press sheet, independent of artwork.
Okay.
So how can you do that?
Oh, that's not a problem at all. That's not a problem at all.
I just wanted to see you do it.
So really what we're looking at here is, and let me go back to that other job here. This will show you a little bit better. But now I'm going to do this in the job, but you'll do this actually in the plate template so that it's always common to what you do, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's very, very, very easy to do. So see, this is my reference, or this is my mark. Okay. It's referencing the upper middle of the subject. So what you would do is you would want to reference the lower middle of the paper. See it now?
Okay.
Now it's basically at the lower edge, but we want it to be just above the gripper bite, right? So in my case, I want it to be 11 millimeters. Now watch this. See, I type in 11 mm for millimeters, and it converts to inches for me. I like that. The little things kind of get me. But now it's there, and it's in reference to the paper. It's not going to move with the artwork. So when I move the artwork around, right, move this up, the color bar stays with the paper.
Okay.
It's referencing that. Now the next part of the question you asked was, I don't want it to clip to the trim edge of the artwork. So see the mark, see the outer line? That's the entire size of this mark. And that's a property of the actual physical mark itself. So what you would do is you would simply say, I don't want this color control mark to be auto-clipped. So you would not have that. That would actually take it outside or take the clipping away. Now, let me bring in a different mark here. Okay, so here's your mark. I'm going to edit that. And I'm going to say, okay, margin. But basically what will happen is this margin is already set. It's already locked in. So it goes out. Your margin would not be there. Or you could say, I want that to be 5 millimeters away from the edge of the sheet. Your color bar probably doesn't go to the edge of the sheet, right? Or does it?
Yeah, it does.
It does, so right at the edge. So that's basically what you would see.
But Yeah, so that would be it there then.
But that would be consistent. That would be part of your plate template. When you saw me import the plate template and the marks associated with the plate template, this would be your default property, different than what I have. But it will be nonetheless a default so that you'll get this every single time. Won't worry about the clipping and the cropping and so forth like that.
Okay.
Okay? And you have probably specific color bars for the Komori, right?
We do.
Okay, so if you give me an EPS or a PDF, we'll import that into the system, and then there's your mark that's defined.
Okay.
The Cygnus station comes with the whole suite of Heidelberg color bars, but I mean, you know, if it's a Komori, a man rolling, or whatever, as long as you got the color bar, like Sean said, an EPS or a PDF, you just import it. In fact, Kurt, you know, if you needed multiple colors, if you know, 4 color, 6 color, whatever, you can stack them just like we stack ours too. So then when it reads the PDF, it selects the proper color bar for the color that you're printing.
Okay.
Well, anything else?
No, as far as what you've shown me, everything makes sense. It looks very nice.
All right, very good. Well, I'm happy that you liked it. Certainly appreciate your time today. I know it's valuable, so it's very much appreciated that you took the time with us today.
Yeah, it was. It looks like a very nice system. Mark, I guess we'll need to talk more about the pricing aspect and how it's configured and what modules are optional and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's, you know, what time, I can call you back, Kurt. Is there any time that's good for you? Probably not now because you've been away from work.
Yeah.
Later this afternoon or tomorrow or anything?
Sure. I'm here until about 5 o'clock our time, and I'm here between 9 and 5 tomorrow. So anytime is fine by me.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll try and get to you later this afternoon. If not, it'll be tomorrow afternoon because I know I'm going out to a client's in the morning. But okay, we'll chat and talk, and you know, the other thing you asked about, you know, was the remote proofing. We do have the remote access. That would take another half hour to demo at least. So if I'll send you info on that. If that's interesting, we'll just set up another webinar with Sean.
Okay. Yeah, it's always interesting to us, but we sort of had a failed attempt at it with Rampage, and we're a little bit leery about it now. So that may not be on the table anymore. But anyhow, yeah. So let's talk some more.
Okay, that sounds good, Kurt. And hey, thanks for the time. And if Lisa's still there, thank you, Lisa. And if she's not, tell her I said thanks.
Okay. Yeah, she had to head out. But and Sean, thank you. It was a very well done presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kurt. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
John, you there?